and welcome to Sellers and Makers Podcast, a place artisans can come together in community, brought to you by Everything Embroidery Market. I'm your host, Hope Dale, and Christina Schulman. Today, we're going to talk to Ashely Jennings from Bangle and Babe.
Woohoo! So happy to be here.
Happy to have you.
We're excited. So Hope has known Ashely for quite some time, and this is my first time meeting you, so I'm glad that you're here, but I feel like I know you, maybe.
I think I know you too, so that's
good. Okay, so as a little icebreaker, you've got kiddos, I've got kiddos, Hope has kiddos, and I'm sure a lot of people on here listening have children as well. So let's start out Encanto, however you want to say it, or Frozen. What's your Frozen?
I would have to say Encanto, even though I've got some issues, but don't get me started, but for sure Encanto.
Yeah, we don't talk about Bruno, so. What about you, Hope? What do you think?
I will say I feel like the music slaps a little more on Encanto, but
sure.
I'm going to go with Frozen just because Jackson wants to marry Elsa.
Okay, get it. So I love Encanto. I like the message of coming together with family and overcoming differences, whatever. But Frozen is going to be my theme for right now. Just let it go. Gotta let it go. Yes. Let it go. Roll with the punches and let it go. So I love it. Okay, so Ashely, tell us a little bit about yourself and then how life led you to opening your business.
Okay. It's so funny you asked that at lunch or at breakfast just now. I was asked if I thought I would be an entrepreneur, like if I ever thought I'd own my own business, and absolutely not is the answer. Of course, I don't have a 5-minute plan, much less a 5-year plan, so kind of. But so I was a teacher prior to that, and I was looking for a bangle. I was looking for a keyring, and actually Hope was there for my search. And but I wanted it to be flexible. So there was this company called Whiting and Davis, and they're still around, and they made these like metal mesh purses. And like in the 80s and 90s, they had these key rings, and they were a circle, and they were metal mesh, and all these like fancy ladies have them. And I thought they were the coolest thing, and like the epitome of class. And so I kind of wanted something like that, but I wanted it to be flexible. I had this baby who weighed 1,000 pounds and had all this stuff, and she cried all the time, and I was just at the end of my rope. And so I wanted something flexible that my kid could also have and not hurt my wrist. And so I started looking, and I just couldn't find what I was looking for. And I had kind of big hands, and so I wanted it to be able to go on easily, and I wanted to be able to do it one-handed. And so I started looking, and I'm kind of one of those I could do it. And so I was like, well, so I started looking, and I'm like, I cannot do that. I'm not going to be pouring silicone in my garage. That's not a thing that's going to be happening. So I started kind of searching for things that I could make work. So I was looking at gaskets and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And I just couldn't find it. And so I started I was like, well, if I'm looking for this, there's probably maybe other people are looking for it. So I started reaching out to manufacturers and really making kind of a fool of myself a lot, but learning a lot along the way, and kind of figured out kind of the process and found a manufacturer that I could invest relatively little and kind of just test the waters a little bit. And so I did that. And so I actually did it right after Hurricane Harvey hit our town of Rockport, and we lost our house. And so I was like, well, what better time? I kind of had everything in place and had my sample, and I was like, well, let's go ahead and do it now. So got my first order, and our first class were me making them, putting them together, 4 pieces. And I just kind of all came together. Every little piece came from some different place, and it was kind of a mess, but I did it, and just kind of started with 8 colors and our original design. And that's how it started.
Okay, so I think that's how a lot of people start their business, right?
Absolutely.
They find a need, and then they try and fill it, and then it grows from there. And maybe they change it a little bit along the way, but it starts from one small, I guess, seed.
Solving a problem.
Yes, a problem, and you're fixing it. So let's talk about that a little bit. How did you get? You said you got your first order. How did you go about doing that?
So I just started reaching out to manufacturers. So I would send an email and say, this is what I'm looking for. And they would respond back with like questions of like, well, and like terms that I had no idea what they meant. And I would have to like go and do research, or they would respond back with like, our minimum order is $100,000. I'd be like, well, thank you very much. And so it's just a lot of learning and figuring out terminology and process and the science behind this process and coordinating. But like I said, there was a lot of parts and pieces, because it wasn't just the product, it was the packaging, it was the website, it was all of that, And so I just kind of was not afraid to ask questions and not afraid to send emails and not get responses, is basically how it worked out. And I wasted some money, going with or, trying manufacturers or trying this product or, ordering something and having it come in and not work out. But that's part of the risk, I guess, that you're kind of assuming. So, you're going to have to, there's a lot of work that goes into it on the forefront, on the front end, that you don't think about, you know what I mean? But when you're like, oh, let's start a business, oh, it's going to be super fun. And it's not all fun. It's a very little fun.
It's very little fun, but it can also be rewarding when it actually comes.
Absolutely.
Yes. I think a lot of people that go into the manufacturing side, I feel like there's a lot of people that want to go in the manufacturing side, but they don't, for reasons like you mentioned, whether it's a high minimum order, or they don't even know where to start to find a manufacturer.
Right.
Or
scary.
It is scary, because then you're tying up your funds, or
because the amounts you're having to order are not, a small business. Like, it's not like these, things. There's
not like Walmart.
So the amount you have to purchase and the lead times you have to purchase for, so you have to have a place to put all this stuff, and you have to have your, you have to learn about, like, so for instance, my stuff, I have molds. So I have to have molds manufactured, and that's a process. I have to have, drawings that can be used for those molds. And there's certain specifications. You can't just draw whatever you want, and the product that the material you're working with matters too. What works for metal doesn't work for silicone and stuff like that, And so there's a huge learning curve, and it is overwhelming. And it's, there's no book, there's no handbook. And then you're also wanting to follow the rules. And, if you're going to be a business, like, you want to be a legitimate business. And there's no rule book for that either. There's no handbook that says, here in Texas, this is what you need to do. You know what I mean? It's a hodgepodge of, 7 different government websites, all of them telling you to do this little tiny piece. And, it's just it's overwhelming.
You said you wasted a lot of money, or you wasted some money in the beginning, but I don't think there's really any way to not, like, especially when you're starting. It doesn't matter how much you plan. There's always going to be something that happens. There's always going to be a pivot. There's always going to be like, I started with this manufacturer and now I'm coming to a problem in the road, and now I have to, go the other way.
And you're going to incur costs when you do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think there's any way to not. Like, it doesn't matter how well you laid out your business plan prior to execution. There's going to be.
I agree.
Right.
That's
well,
and
I will say we wasted a ton of money when we very first started Love.con. Like, it was almost embarrassed to say, because in my mind, the first step was coming up with the product line that we wanted to carry. And then we did something similar where we reached out to a ton of manufacturers. And what I did, which if you're on the beginning stages of this, don't do what I did. I sent those samples to like a whole bunch of people and had them make all the samples instead of just like one item. Give me a sample of this. And so with them doing all of them, and then we had at least, so I don't even remember exactly what the number is, but we had at least 20 different manufacturers send us back samples. And don't do it. I did.
Okay. Eliminated a ton of those with just one.
Yes.
Sample.
And so then, And so then some of these people sent us back baby gowns that were too big for me. And I'm like, this is supposed to go on a newborn baby, and it's big, like it's like adult size. So no, you're off the list.
I've always wanted a sleep sack.
Yes.
Next product line. Hey, I saw this around. That's a good idea.
Right. And so then we learned, right? And then we nailed it down to our top 3. And then we had those people make more samples and then figured out, okay, so you have a lower order quantity, but your price is higher. You have a long lead time. You have this, but those top 3 had the best quality. And we had to kind of figure out what worked for our business model. And once we nailed that down, we still have our same manufacturer from the beginning. But that was an entire year process.
Well, and that's seriously, the thing. I think you get so excited about the idea of it happening. You have it all in your head, and you're just really excited to execute it and to get like feet on the ground. Like, let's do it. And so you're just like, yes, I'm so excited. Like, do it. You know what I mean? And so I think that also, like, kind of pacing yourself can be difficult, but is important. Or not having knee-jerk reactions, and then you see lead times and you're like, well, I still have to, like, I get the product and I still have to do marketing for it and blah 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 blah. It doesn't just sell, like it's packaging. It's easy to get excited and kind of put all, like, just go,
right. Well, and at the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. And so if I were to start again, I would know, okay, I know that I have this list of 10 or 20 questions that if you cannot give me the answer that will work for my business, you're out, right? And I didn't know that at that time. I just was like, can you give me the product? Yes, check,
I think you don't know what you don't know is the thing that I say a lot in this, is that you don't know what you don't know. And you have to also be careful the people giving you the answers or telling you the things, because sometimes they don't know either. You know what I mean? So you have to ask a lot of questions, but you also have to kind of like take a minute to take in what people say, because you don't know if what they're telling you is accurate, or, I mean, it's also comparisons. You want to get some, but not too many, because like you said, you don't know there's a difference between, price, lead time, quality, like all of those things kind of. Just because it's the best manufacturer doesn't mean like their quality is the best, doesn't mean that they will work for you because of lead times or quantities,
Right. Well, absolutely. And in addition to that, just because they tell you they're going to do something does not mean that they're going to do it. We wasted a ton of money. We thought, if you're new here, I don't even know if we've said this on the podcast before, but in a past life, my mom was an interior designer. And so she has a really wonderful job, or does a really wonderful job, just drawing up product pictures, right? And like all the specifications. And a lot of times we'll take those over to the manufacturer and be like, okay, make this, right? So we're like, we're going to make backpacks and lunch boxes, but our manufacturer doesn't make backpacks and lunch boxes. So we had to kind of start the process again. And this new manufacturer made us up a sample. The price was right. They, had all the right answers. And then when we got them in, they weren't the exact same as the sample, or the quality was less than the sample was in mass production, which, you live and learn. And I'm like, okay, we're not doing that again. We're not doing that again.
So it's been about a year or two. I developed a custom clasp that is just for my product. And so I can't tell you, I mean, I probably went through 2 or 3 manufacturers where they're like, yes, we can do that. And so I get to I'd pay for a mold, I'd pay for all the things. And they'd be like, oh, well, the engineering doesn't work at that level. Like it works big, but not small. And it's like, well, I've already paid you, $1,000 just to like have this conversation. And you're telling me that you can't do it now. And you told me you could do it, but you have no, like, that's it. Like, that's it. You either
Right.
pivot with them or you find somebody else. And it's just like Hope said, it's just the cost of doing business.
It
Well,
is.
and I think there's a huge, especially when you're manufacturing and it's overseas, there's a huge language barrier. Like maybe your BS meter is off too, because I know some of these people are just saying what you want to hear.
They are.
And it's just trying to figure out that, are they telling me the truth? Can they really do this? There's just a lot that goes into it.
So something I have done is because my product is manufactured overseas because that's just the only option that I have at the quantities that I can purchase. So I will find a manufacturer that manufactures something similar to what I'm looking for and ask them to send me products, send me what you have. And so that's kind of what I did. And I'd be like, well, can you make this at this, at this level, like at this size or whatever? And they're like, oh, sure, we can do that. And a lot of times you're talking to a salesman. Right. And then once they send you to engineering and they're like, oh, well, our, sample cost is blah, 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 blah. And you pay that. And then they send you to engineering and engineering's like, we can't do that. Like, and it's like, oh, well, great. You just wasted my time and energy and money.
Yes. No, absolutely. 100%. And so for our bag manufacturer, they then stole a bunch of pictures off our website and posted them like they were, like they were the ones that made that. And I'm like, no, you are making a single, or you did, not anymore. You did make two products for us, backpacks and lunch boxes, but you did not make any of those other things. And they will post our pictures. And then someone else comes along thinking that they're making that product.
Right.
And that's just so deceptive and very frustrating. That's theft,
you have there's nothing you can do about it. It's so frustrating.
Right. And, then you waste a bunch of time going back and being like, nope, that wasn't yours. Take it down, take it down, take it down. And then your customers are frustrated because there's brand recognition. And
way cheaper. And it's like, no, well, I mean, like you can get something sort of like it, but like, I can't tell you how many people come to me and are like, I'm sorry, I'm really disappointed I bought this instead of yours to start with, because now I've been buying both of them. But yeah, I totally, yes, I'm on the same page as you.
So if you had any advice for someone starting out, maybe something similar to what you make or what I make, what would you give them as far as going to find a manufacturer? Like just number one advice.
Ooh, I would say find a manufacturer who produces something, number one, in the materials that you're looking for and in a similar style or way of what you're looking for, and have them send you samples of something from them. Don't buy like you said, don't say like, oh, well, they have a picture of my favorite blah, blah, blah that I want it to be similar to. No. Those are probably stolen. You need to have them send you samples, and they'll do that usually for a cost. And that cost is part of doing business. And so that fee will save you time and energy in the long run. So that would be so I have used Alibaba in the past, and I have had nothing but good experiences as far as like, I haven't had any like money stolen or anything like that. So I will search on there for manufacturers who are already kind of doing similar things to what I need, because I know that they already have the process down, they have the equipment. They're not going to be, telling me that they can do things that they can't, because, so that's kind of where I would start. And I would not buy, I'm not encouraging you to buy things that are already manufactured, like buying things that are manufactured in mass off of there. I'm saying that's where you should go to find a manufacturer to custom make things for you.
Right. Well, and I think that's a really good piece of advice. To add to that, I would say before you invest money to have them send you a sample, have them send you a real life picture, their picture, not just one that they've stolen.
Right.
And then go forward with the sample.
And another thing would be ask them what they're like. Once you give them, I think that's great, a real life picture, then a sample, because shipping is expensive. You're right. Before you invest that money, I would say ask them what your MOQ would be. What is your minimum order quantity going to be? Because just because they list their MOQ as 50 pieces to 100 pieces, if they're doing a custom product for you, the process may be different, and your minimum might be 50,000 pieces. So that's another thing: is don't waste your time and energy if you're not going to be able to meet their minimum.
Right, because they might have that minimum listed as something they've already made it up, and because they've already made it, they're selling it at a certain price. But if they're making it special, then the price and the quantity, everything goes up.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good piece of advice for sure. As part of being someone who has your product manufactured and then shipped to you, what are some struggles that you have been facing, maybe shipping or anything else that's changed over the last couple of years, and how do you overcome that?
Well, when I first started, before COVID and all of this, my first challenge was that I did not realize that, because my product was manufactured in China, that they go on vacation for a month, or not vacation, they have a month-long holiday. And so it was time for me to reorder. I was sold out, and I'm trying to contact my manufacturer, and they're ghosting me. They've disappeared. And I'm like, that's not what happened. I just was not educated enough to know that they were on holiday for a month, So I think that sort of thing is important to be aware of, cultural differences as far as workplaces go and things like that. Holidays, just be flexible, I think, and be sensitive to those kind of things. Another thing, like you said, recently, increase in shipping costs, because I'm not shipping by freight, sea freight. And so air freight is astronomical, almost as much as the product cost. And so that is a huge adjustment that I've had to get used to. Adjusting how much I'm ordering, when I'm ordering it, how badly do I need to restock that, kind of thing. And then also, these facilities are shutting down months on end or weeks on end. And so it's not just my product that they were having to, push back, or I'm getting products, I'll get, 1,000 shipped, and then it'll go 3 weeks and I'll get another 500 in the mail. So it's kind of like just being a little bit more being able to adjust to those kind of things, and being okay with being sold out of things that I wouldn't normally be okay with. So it's just kind of having to pivot as far as my ideas of how I run my business. It's been a eye-opening that how comfortable I was in my old, how easy things were, and then just trying to be really sensitive that like nobody wants this, like that we're all just doing the best we can, and that unfortunately that makes it a challenge as far as, like, for instance, I was sold out of my 2 most popular clasp colors. So how am I going to market the other clasp colors as like just as desirable, and get rid of all that back that I have and be able to offer those. So.
Yeah. And then even having to, I don't know that you've done it yet, but adjusting prices, because like you said, your shipping costs are almost as much as your product. And then having to go back to that where you're like happy with the price that you have, but then there's that it's not only it all just ticks down the line.
It does. And you're not just shipping your product, you're shipping marketing materials, you're shipping all of the components of your product. And so shipping is just, and not only is it taking longer, it's so much more costly. And I have lost, as far as like wholesale reps and stuff like that. Like I can't compete with some, I can't lower my price anymore and still be able to sell wholesale, if that makes sense. And so it's just kind of like, you just got to pivot and find a different way.
Yeah, no, because I think that's everybody right now. I don't think there's anybody. I think before everybody was like, oh my gosh, shipping, and there's nothing that's going to be there and, on time. And now everybody just realizes that's how it is, and prices have to go up, and it's unfortunate. And the thing is, no one wants to do it.
Right. Nobody's happy about this. We all have to be nice to each other and
right.
understanding.
I feel like the consumers at first were kind of like WTF about it, but then they're like, wait, they don't want to do it either. Like it's
Right.
hurting them.
And like right now I'm eating that cost. That's cost that I'm eating. Like, and so like I said, it's not just overseas stuff. Like my marketing materials that I'm printing in the US, like those things cost more to ship too. Like,
Right.
and they're taking longer because those people are getting their paper and their machinery and things like that. That's all. I mean, it's not just our little like, oh, I buy local or I only buy US made products. And it's like, well, that's not really realistic or how it works,
Yeah. No, but it all trickles down. And unfortunately, it's also, like I said, it's also just part of the cost of doing business.
It is. And it's important to build that in. If you're starting a business, important to build that into your pricing structure. And don't, especially like I wholesale. I mean, I know you guys do too at Love That Cotton. And when I priced my product, I wasn't really thinking about wholesale. I just kind of accidentally priced myself that way. And if you want to wholesale, that is a whole nother beast that you have to that's where you start as far as your pricing go, and then build in your retail. And so that is something to think about is to add that, like, shipping's going to like be a huge cost. Don't just say like, oh, this is how much it costs to manufacture. No. You gotta price shipping in there.
Shipping should be in there, cost per item, as well as tariffs if you have to pay them.
Thank you. Tariffs and all of that jazz.
Yes, tariffs was one thing that, while I knew it was there before.
Right. Yeah, and then you're like, wait, I owe how much to who?
Yes, and it's just like people, doing business, and you have to pay your taxes to the government. It's, sometimes people don't plan accordingly, and then it bites them, whenever they have to pay.
Right, and it's kind of a surprise what it's going to be. You know what I mean? It's kind of you kind of have a ballpark, but you don't know exactly how much that's going to cost until they call you and like, we're not releasing your shipment until you pay this,
Yeah. And I want to add on that too, just as a tidbit. If you bring things in from overseas, different things can be at a different tariff rate. And sometimes your product might fall into multiple categories, right? So like a t-shirt for us is tariffed at a different rate than, say, a bubble or a swimsuit or something like that. And so it can be significantly higher or lower depending on how, what tariff code you use. And that's something that you learn as you get going. But if you're in your mind, you're at the tariff rate of the lower amount, and then all of a sudden it's so much more, you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
So, man, struggles. But that's why pricing is important. And all of us are in business to make money. And if you don't price accordingly, you're one, going to get burned out. Two, you can't make a profit. Three, it's not sustainable long term. So
you can't continue to make your product if you're not pricing it correctly.
Right.
And that goes for people that are retailers as well.
Right.
I see every day people saying, my prices went up and now I'm not going to be able to make my profit. You have to raise your prices. If your cost goes up, you have to raise your prices.
And it's like when at EEM, when we were in the vendor panel, they were talking about putting all of your prices in you could do the year or the month, but that all goes into like, how much is it costing you to run this business? And I feel like a lot of people don't actually like take into account like your light bill, your internet, some of it, if you're working from home, yes, that's part of your home, but that's also part of what you're running your business on. So like all of those things also need to kind of, what's your price of running your business?
Yeah,
and then you have to figure all of that out in your pricing structure. It's not just how much did this bangle cost or how much did this t-shirt cost to make and how am I going to price it to profit?
Packaging, like what are you going to when somebody buys it? Are you going to put it in a bag? Are you just going to hand it to them? I mean, all of that adds up a lot,
Right.
And when you start to add in employees, how, you know, you have that
insurance
cost too.
and
Yes.
it's
payroll
how much
taxes.
you pay them. It's payroll taxes. It's workman's comp insurance. It's all of those things, you know. Marketing. It's everything. Like that's what, you know. So I have my studio at my home. Well, I need liability insurance. If I'm going to have an employee in my home, I need insurance to cover that. I need workman's comp insurance. I need all of those things, and it's a huge cost. It's not just the $15 an hour I'm paying this college kid, you know?
Right. And it's, so while all of those things are part of doing business, a cost of doing business, I also want to encourage you that just because we're saying all these struggles doesn't mean don't do it, because
no. It's just there are things that you don't need. Like I didn't have an employee when I started, so it wasn't something I thought about. And so what we're talking about pricing structures is that you need to build a little bit of cushion in there, because things are going to change and the cost of doing business will increase as your business increases. And so that don't be turned off by it, but just know that it will be there if things continue to grow. Those are things that will come up that you didn't have to worry about when you started. It was just you doing it, you know?
And a lot of these things, you don't have to necessarily have this all figured out. It's just, they will come up as you go on. And some of them will just, you know, you're increasing and this happens, but it's also good to hear people talk about it. So you have some idea that, hey, that's something I probably need to think about. It might not be right now. It might be in a year. It might be in 2, but it's on my radar.
One of the things that I think is really important when you kind of start a business is to find a community. Because, you know, just because your uncle owns an insurance agency doesn't necessarily mean that he has the knowledge needed for a product-based business or something of that kind. All businesses are not, you know, operated the same. So one of the things I did was I found people in my community who may not have the exact same business structure I do, but they do have similar challenges and similar, you know, they're facing some of the same like paperwork issues, or they need a bookkeeper too, things like that. It's just really nice to have people who understand what your struggles are. It's kind of nice to complain together or to spitball solutions. Like, yeah, I had that problem too, and this is what I did, or this is what I did, it didn't work. Don't do that. You know what I mean? So it's really nice to have other like-minded individuals. They don't have to be, you know, necessarily your best friends, but you know, that is well found some of my very good friends. It's really, it's hard to start a business, and it's really hard when you don't have anybody who understands what you're going through or understands the challenges associated with it. And so I think that's one of the main things that I would say is find a community, find something in your community, in your area, that is people that can be a resource to you.
Yeah. And the good thing too is that, I mean, I feel like in most of the places that I've lived, I've always seen some sort of small business community group that will help you, that puts on, whether it's a product based or not, like they have shows or whatever, and you can work with that.
Yeah.
Now with online stuff though, I feel like there's all sorts of communities you can find through.
Well, that's kind of what you guys have created, right?
Yeah. So you don't have to
and use that resource. That's kind of my main thing, is find a resource and use it. Like, even if it's just finding out, like, where do you guys have your business banking? You know, like things like that maybe aren't like what you would ask your best friend or, you know, your cousin, you know, but that are really important in running a business and things that you don't necessarily want to waste time on. And if somebody's already done some of the work and they're willing to help, see, that's the thing, is like a lot of you'll run into is that a lot of people are closed books. Like, I did the work, you do the work. And so, you know, there's a fine line there of like being willing to help and, or, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, do your own work, but also like, let me save you a little bit of time. Don't go to that place. That's not going to be the best place for you. Or I already did that and it didn't work out. You know what I mean? So I think it's really important to utilize those resources. And like you said, Hope, like now that we have the internet open to us. Like, you should be able to find something that will help you. And I think it's great that y'all have kind of created that.
Yeah, thank you. And that's why we have the podcast. That's why we have EEM Connect, and that's why we do the in-person everything embroidery markets, because I wholeheartedly believe that that's important. And even for the seasoned business owner that's been doing it for years, they could learn something new that makes life easier on them just because they heard someone else was doing it at one of these events or whatever, And I mean, I feel like even just the little nuggets of gold that you've shared in this podcast are things that people starting out like us, we didn't know that, we didn't know to look at that. And everyone starts somewhere, right?
Exactly. And so I'm part of a women's entrepreneur group here in Corpus Christi where I live. And just the number of people that don't know they need a sales tax ID or need to be paying sales tax, or, that they need to register with a county clerk, or that they, all of these things that they're, like you said, there's no handbook, there's no one size fits all. And just having a resource that says like, hey, you could get in a lot of trouble if you don't do this, and this is where you need to go to do that. And let me help you, or let me just like put a bug in your ear. That is really important. And
even just the website in Texas to sign up to register a business name.
Oh yeah.
It's the most confusing website. And then you have to pay like $1 to see if it's there. And then you have to pay $300 to register it. But then like you can send it in through email or fax, but they would prefer this way. And it's like, did y'all get it?
And then there's like 7 different websites that say that they're the website to actually do it, but they're not really the website. They're not the website. They're just charging you money so that they could go do it for free on the government. It's like, it's a big mess.
Yes. There's so many aspects and so many things to think about, but you're right. Just finding your crew is important. And then just because you have those roadblocks doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it and it's not worth it, because it is super rewarding once you get past the initial stages and you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I created this business.
I did it.
Yeah.
How did I do it? I did it.
Oh my gosh, I'm doing it.
So on that note, what is one of your favorite things about being a business owner?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, it does provide me a lot of freedom as far as my schedule. I have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I mean, I work a lot, but I've recently had my life just put in a salt shaker and like shake it up, and it has provided me a bit of I've got it set up to where I have been able to kind of step away and take care of my business, my personal business, and the business is kind of, I mean, it's not thriving on its own, but it's going. And I was able to do that. Like I was able to build that, I built that. And I think that it's provided me it's given me time is what it's given me. It's given me time to get my life put back together and to handle my personal life. Whereas if I had been teaching, that I can't even imagine how I would have done it.
Right.
So that's what it's provided me is time and peace.
Yeah. And
peace
that's huge.
That I have a little time to put the pieces back to where they need to go.
And if it's okay because you make the rules, right? It's okay if, you know what, I put this on the back burner for a minute.
Right.
Because I don't have someone saying this has to be done right now.
That's
because
right.
I'm that person.
I'm not disappointing anybody as long as I can pay my employee. I'm doing good.
Right.
I'm disappointing myself.
That's flexibility.
Yes, flexibility. That's a good word. That's the word I was looking for. Hope. Good job.
She's very good at remembering your words.
She is so good at remembering things. She always amazes me. I tell her that. I'm like, how do you remember? I don't, whatever.
If you tell me some random thing that happened in your pregnancy, specifically pregnancy related, I will remember it.
You will remember it. She'll be like, do you remember blah, blah, blah?
It's like, wait, that happened to me and I don't remember it. I don't know. I'm a weirdo.
No, yesterday, so this is a little bit off topic, but yesterday, when I was around people from my past, I guess. There was a guy that he's a friend of a friend, and I knew him well, I guess he's a family friend of a friend, if that makes sense. And so he was like, yeah, I remember at your wedding. And I was like, you were at my wedding? I was so embarrassed that I couldn't remember that. And he's probably going to listen to this one day and be like, yeah, Christina,
thanks.
I was there. Oh my gosh, I was so embarrassed. I know I turned red. And then I asked my husband, I was like, do you remember? And he was like, yeah, he was there. And I was like, way to go. That. Hope would have remembered.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, goodness gracious. But anyway.
I was at your wedding.
Yeah, I remember that. There we go. I remember that. Weddings, though, are hard. When you're the one getting married, it's just a blur, right? It feels like 5 seconds, and then, the day's over, and I don't know.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't remember who was there. I'm talking about other people's random pregnancies. I'm not talking about weddings. I will remember dates. I will remember if you told me you had a weird blood test, any of those things. I got you.
I got you.
If you had to go on some medicine, I'll remember that.
Yes.
It's very stupid, and I don't know why I remember that stuff, but I do.
Well, it's very helpful in lots of aspects.
When you're at the doctor's office and you're filling something out, I'll tell you what you're on.
There you go. I love it.
But sorry, off topic.
Well, I steered us away with the wedding thing, so sorry about that. But anyway, thank you for coming on here. I really appreciate it. And I think that you have shared a lot of little bits of knowledge that a lot of people will take away, and maybe now not be afraid to start, because
I'm sorry, I feel like I talked about a lot of the challenges of starting a business, but it is worth it. It is worth it.
No, it is. And that's not what I meant. I meant sometimes it's good to hear that someone had challenges, they made it through, and now you have a wonderful business that's able to provide you the flexibility that you need. And that's been a common theme for a lot of business owners, right? There's struggles. It's hard. Sometimes you got to get down in the nitty gritty, but then it's worth it.
Well, I think so many people see the polished presentation. They see the social media, they see the posts and all that. And you just see this polished item, and you don't realize that there were struggles or what goes on behind the scenes. And I think sharing that, and that, look, we ended up with this great product that we love, but there were some struggles behind it, but it was totally worth it. And we're still doing it, and we still love it. I think that's kind of the thing. That's the great thing is it's knowing that there was struggles, but we made it, and here it is, and it's pretty. Yeah.
Don't be deceived by pretty marketing, because my stuff, that was my main thing, is make it look make it look polished, make it look reputable, make it look trustworthy. And, it I was shipping out everything, but it was in a temporary house with boxes piled up everywhere, so don't be fooled by fancy, flashy marketing and thinking that everything behind the scenes is just as flashy. It's not.
Well, that's an important point to talk about too. Sometimes you present you have to present how you want it to be perceived, right? Mm-hmm. So if you are selling a high quality item, it's important that you take the time to present it as a high quality item. Absolutely. Because you can have the most expensive, beautiful dress or purse or shoes or whatever in the entire world, but if they're just thrown on the ground and you just snap a picture and it's in dim lighting, people aren't going to perceive the value that they actually are providing. So taking a moment and presenting it in the way you want people to accept it, you should, that makes a big difference. It makes a huge difference. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles that a lot of people will face, I guess. They get excited, they get the product made, and then they know the worth of that product, but they don't take the time to present it to the world in that way. You know, it through photography. If you have a website with your all of your descriptions, all like just every little piece matters. And
Absolutely.
if you don't take the time to fill it out or do it correctly, you're doing yourself and your business a disservice. So yes,
Absolutely. All the things.
well, we really enjoyed chatting with you. I know your business is going to continue to do big and wonderful things, and I can't wait to see how it grows and evolves.
Thank you. I'm so excited for you guys and your podcast and all your stuff you're doing.
We got lots of stuff going on.
We got lots of balls in the air, right?
She hears about it.
Yes, lots of stuff going on, and there's struggles there too, and there's lots of things. But we're excited to keep moving forward, and thanks for listening. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you at the next one.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.